Hey guys, this is Nod Lammers of Invoked 101, and today we're doing part 2 of the deck review video that I did last time. So we're going to be looking at decks 3 and 4 this time. Last time we looked at a Dark Lord deck and a Lunalight deck, which you can still see on screen, and we're going to be looking at 2 different decks today, and I have forgotten which ones they are. So let's go deck number 3. Oh, this is this was sent in by Lyrie of the Arc. This is his Pendulum Magician deck. So I'm not super familiar with the Pendulum Magician stuff. I know what it does. It's just like there's a few cards in Pendulum Magicians that I don't quite remember what they do, but I also know why there's certain monsters in the deck themselves. So we're going to talk about it. So we got a Dragon Pit Magician over here. He's a level 7 vanilla spellcaster. 3 Master Cerberus. This is part of the Mythical Beast engine. It's able to like get you like monsters on board without using your normal or pendulum summon. So that's why he's in here. Because I believe like he can summon himself from the where is it? From the extra deck or something like that. Or something summons him from deck and he's a he's an 8. 3 Apex Avian. This guy is the Kieran. He bounces himself and bounces a card back to the opponent's hand. Zhanki Magician, he's a level 7. He also negates light monster effects. 3 Supreme... Oh no, just 2 Gate 0. Only 2 Gate 0. Sorry. This is a 7, the Pendulum monster. You search it with a Dark Worm. And then you can summon it out of the Pendulum Zone with a Meteor Burst and then overlay it into Absolute, and Absolute turns into Vortex. Mythical Beast King Jackal. I believe this is the one that summons... this is the other part of the Mythical Beast engine, and I think this is the one that gets Master Cerberus on field. If you have no cards in the other Pendulum Zone, destroy this card. If you do special summon a face-up Pendulum monster from your extra deck, except Jackal King. Yeah, so what you do is you get Cerberus. Cerberus goes in the Pendulum Zone, he pops himself, you add Jackal King, put Jackal King into your Pendulum Zone, pop itself, and you summon Master Cerberus. There we go, see, big brain plays. I know what I'm talking about. 2 Oath Dragon Magician. This guy scoops up a face-up Magician card from your other Magician or Odd Eyes from your extra deck and puts it back in your hand. 3 Chronograph. He summons Time Gazer, or he's kind of like a mini Astrograph where he can summon it himself. If a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, special summon this card from your hand, then you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. So he lets you do some stuff. Supreme King Dragon Darkworm, he's playing 3 of those. This guy summons himself from the graveyard if you control no cards. Black Fang Magician, 2 of those. 3 Wisdom Eye. Wisdom Eye is able to pop himself and put something else and replace him with another Pendulum Magician card in the scale. I believe, right? Yeah. Or destroy this card, place a Pendulum monster from your deck in the Pendulum Zone. Yeah. Violet Poison, just another standard Pendulum Magician card. Harmonizing Magician, this thing is like a free rank 4 because it's summoned if it's Pendulum summoned. Right? When this card is Pendulum Summon from the hand, special summon a Magician Pendulum from your deck. Yep. So 3 of those, and then 1 Time Gazer because you can blow up Chronograph in your scale and special summon Time Gazer. So it's like it's another free summon to make a Electromite. That's what it's for. And then for the spells, 3 Pot of Desires, not Pot of Duality. 2 Dragon Shrine, 3 Pendulum Call, and a Foolish Burial. Then for the extra deck, this is an extra deck of 1-ofs, and I hated putting it into my Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, so thanks. 1 Vortex Dragon, 1 Ignister, 1 Supreme King Dragon Clearwing, 1 Odd Eyes Meteor Burst, 1 Absolute, Odd Eyes Absolute, 1 Norito, 1 Supreme King Dragon Dark Rebellion, 1 Time Star Magician, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Baguska for the negates, 1 Abyss Dweller, and then Zephyr Metaltron, Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, Land Phalanx, and Underclock Taker. So a lot of 1-ofs in this deck. I'm going to talk about this a little bit. I think this is pretty solid. It looks like every Pendulum Magician deck I've ever seen. So, you know, that's fun. There's a lot of stuff in here that, like, just... It looks like a lot of starters and a little bit of extenders. I think the 2 Dragon Shrines and the 1 Foolish is weird. Like, I get why you're playing the Foolish, but why aren't you just playing a 3rd Dragon Shrine as well? Like, especially when your only target is... Unless Black Fang... No, Black Fang is a spellcaster. I was going to say, isn't he a dragon? But no, he's not. So, you could honestly just play 3 Dragon Shrine. Outside of that, I don't see anything wrong with this. This is a pretty solid deck. I think the Dragon Pit's a little weird. The Dragon Pit Magician is a little strange because I think you could find something better than him. I don't know exactly what it would be, but I think you could find something better than Dragon Pit for this deck. Outside of that, this is pretty standard. There's a lot of level 7s, which Pendulum Magicians want. They want a lot of level 7s because they want to go into Absolute, and then you want to link off Absolute into with Electromite into Metaltron, and Metaltron will make Vortex, which is part of the negates. So you are playing a lot of the stuff that the deck does want to play. You got the Mythical Beast Cerberus, which I think I got that right, which is you go Cerberus into Jackal, and then Jackal brings back Cerberus. If I'm right. I didn't get to play this deck when it was doing that. So I think it's a pretty solid deck overall. You're not playing like any one-ofs outside of the Jonki, the Time Gazer, and the Dragon Pit, and the Foolish. So when you Pot of Desires, you're probably not hitting anything too important. I think your extra deck full of one-ofs is super annoying and super weird. And I'm also a little bit confused how you make... Is Ignister an 8? Oh, okay, never mind. He's an 8, so I know how you make him. The Meteor Burst, I am a little confused on how you make Meteor Burst, though, unless you're making him off of Absolute. But why would you make Meteor Burst off of Absolute without the over a Vortex? Because the only reason, unless you were playing a second Absolute. So that's the only thing I have a question with, is like, how would you make... Because I don't see a level 3 tuner in this. And I mean, I guess you could use Time Gazer and Harmonizing to do it, but that's really weird. Anyway, I think this deck is solid. I have no real qualms with it outside of that it's Pendulum Magicians, and I'm not the super big fan of Pendulum Magicians. So let's go into deck number 4, the fourth and final deck for this time, and it is a Element Saber deck. So this is a deck I wanted to mess around with because I thought it was going to be good with Invoked, and I didn't get to fully mess around with it. So let's talk about it. So we have some Elemental Lords up top. He's playing one Phosphoridge, the Elemental Lord, which is the light one. He's playing one Moulin Glacier, which I believe lets you rip cards out of your opponent's hand. This card is special summoned. Discard 2 random cards from your opponent's hand. Yeah. And then the Wind Rose, which is the Wind Elemental Lord, which says destroy all spells and traps. And the light one, what does he do? Destroy all monsters. Okay, so one's a Raigeki and the other one's a Heavy Storm. So that's pretty cool. And so then he's playing Element Saber Willard. You can send 2 cards from your hand, special summon this card from your hand. And then he gets effects based on the kinds that you sent. Depending on the original attributes sent to the graveyard to activate this card's effect. Wind or Earth or Wind can't be destroyed, cannot be destroyed. Opponent can't target it. So that's kind of cool. So he's a 2400, so he's a bit of a body, and he's a level 6. That's not awful. He's playing 3 of those. He's playing 4 of the Dark one, which send an Element Saber from then target a face up on the field, change it to face down. Oh, so he's like a Raging, but for a discard. And then all of the Element Sabers, except for Willard, share an effect that you can change their attribute in the graveyard. Once per turn, if this card is in the graveyard, declare an attribute. Yeah, and it changes their attribute until the end of the turn. So so that's what they all have. He's playing one of the 3 of the light one, which is Lapulia. I don't even know. Once per turn, when a spell or trap is activated, send an Element Saber from your hand to the graveyard, negate it, and destroy it. That's pretty cool. He's playing one of the fire one. Once per turn, send an Element Saber from your hand to the graveyard. Send an Element Saber or Elemental Lord from your deck to the graveyard, except himself. That's kind of weak. So you discard one and then you send one? That's kind of lame. 2 of the water one, which is Nalu. Send an Element Saber from your hand to the graveyard. Target an Element Saber in your graveyard, except self. Add it to your hand. Why would... What? You discard an Element Saber to add an Element Saber? What? That's kind of lame. I guess you could add what you discarded back. That's kind of dumb. So it could like bait like Ghost Ogre, I guess. 3 of the Wind one, which is McKinney. Once per turn, send an Element Saber from your hand to the graveyard. Add an Element Saber or Elemental Lord monster from your deck to your hand. So this one searches. That's cool. So you get to send one and search one. That's cool. Once per turn, send an Element Saber from your hand to the graveyard. Target 1 Element Saber, except itself, or Elemental Lord that has been properly summoned in the graveyard and special summon it, ignoring summoning conditions. Once per turn, if the... Okay, that's really cool. This one's a Monster Reborn. That's awesome. He's playing 3 of those of the Earth one. Then he's playing a Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. That's really cool, because you can just change their attributes and then banish them for the Blackluster Soldier. That's clever. And then the Dark Armed Dragon is also really cool, because you can just change 3 of them to dark, and or like, I guess if you have the dark one in there, you can just change 2 others to dark, and then make sure the other ones aren't, and summon Dark Armed Dragon like whenever you want. That's really cool. That's super dope. He's playing 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Eater of Millions, and then for spells he's playing Rhoda, Darkhole, 2 Terraformings, a Monster Reborn, 2 Called by the Grave. And then he's playing 3 of the Field Spell, which I don't know what the Field Spell does, but I know that this deck kind of relies on it, so I'm going to read the Field Spell. All monsters you control gain attack and defense equal to the number of different attributes in your graveyard times 200. Once per turn, you can add an Element Saber monster from your deck to your hand, but skip the battle phase of your next turn, even if this card leaves the field. Once per turn, if an Element Saber monster in your hand or field would send a card from the hand to the graveyard to activate an effect, you can send that many Element Saber monsters from your deck to the graveyard instead. Okay, he's playing 3 of these, and this solved a big problem that I had with the deck, and I was going to talk about it in a second, is that all of these require you to send an Element Saber from your hand, and I'm like, that's way too difficult to get. Like, you can't control that. This fixes that, but at the same time, if this gets, like, destroyed, if this gets wrecked, that's a little rough. That's pretty harsh. And then he's playing 3 of the Trap, which is Elemental Training, and it is a continuous trap, and it says your opponent cannot target Palace of the Elemental Lords, which is the field spell, with card effects. Also, it can't be destroyed by card effects. So, okay, there we go. That works. Once per turn, you contribute a monster, special summon an Element Saber from your deck with a different original attribute than that monster's. You can send this face-up card from the field to the graveyard, discard your entire hand, then add Elemental Lord monsters from your graveyard to your hand equal to the number of cards discarded. How do I get the Elemental Lords in the graveyard? Can I discard? No, you can't discard them. But you can... it's not if I inject your graveyard instead. Yeah, so... How does it assume that you're getting the Elemental Lords in the graveyard? That's a little strange. I guess it's just assuming that they'll die. They're all 28 22s though, so I don't know how they're dying. They're pretty strong. Anyways, this deck is pretty cool. This is a lot cooler than I thought it was. There is no extra deck for this. I would recommend a few rank 4s, maybe some Link monsters, or if you're not going to use your extra deck and you just feel like not having one, Pot of Indulgence, which is coming out in Savage Strike, could be really cool in this, and so could Winter Cherry, especially if you're not going to use your extra deck. Just Winter Cherries and a bunch of meta relevant, like Dante's always a good one, Boral Load, what else are people playing? Trigate Wizard, Gumblar, stuff like that, stuff that people are playing. You could easily hit Mechaba. You could just knock out of people's extra deck using cherries. That'd be really cool. So like if your opponent flips Scapegoat, you can activate cherries and take out their Boral Load. The Eater of Millions also can banish from the extra deck. So since you don't have an extra deck, the Eater of Millions, you're banishing cards from somewhere that's slightly more important than what your extra deck would be. So there's another thing, is you can just banish parts of your extra deck for Eater of Millions over the top of your deck, or where is it, from your hand, field, or extra deck. Yeah, so you have to get rid of them from your hand or field. So yeah, if you put some stuff in your extra deck, then the Eater of Millions would be more alive, so I'd recommend that. And I would try and see if you can do Element Saber Invoked. It could end up being a little bit better than this, even though Invoke does have their own field spell. I don't think you'd have to run it in this one. This deck doesn't seem to rely too much on its normal summons. Granted, there are a lot of normal, like, none of these seem to special summon themselves except for the Lords and Willard, but you could honestly use Willard to special summon himself, dump 2, and then you'll have 2 Element Sabers in the grave, normal summon Alistair, search Invocation, and then make whatever invoked monster you want. And also have a 2400 beater and like a Mechaba. So you could do that, that'd be kind of cool. But overall, I think this deck is pretty solid. I haven't built Element Sabers before, but this looks pretty cool. This looks pretty cool, and you do have some hand traps in there. You have the Veilers. I would recommend cutting the Eater of Millions. If you're not going to add an extra deck, I would recommend cutting the Eater of Millions for a different hand trap. Something like, what is it? Ghost Ash Blossom. If you can get your hands on some, even Ghost Ogre wouldn't be awful in this, or Gamma. Gamma could be cool. But yeah, I think that this deck is pretty solid overall. I haven't messed around with this, but I think the Blackluster Soldier and the Dark Arm Dragon techs are really cool. Like after I read I looked at this deck and I was like, how are you doing the Blackluster Soldier and the Dark Arm Dragon thing? And then I read them and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Because you can just change them. That's really smart. I think that's really cool. I would honestly rather play the 2 BLS over the Dark Arm Dragon though. I'd take him out and put in a second BLS just because you want to see. I feel like you want to see one of them more than the other one more times, and the Blackluster Soldier is just a little bit easier to summon as well, due to it only needing 2 instead of 3, and it just doesn't take as much setup. And Blackluster Soldier won't, while it does get rid of 2 of your resources, it doesn't get rid of 3 of them like the Dark Arm Dragon does. So the Dark Arm Dragon isn't always going to be life. And also, Blackluster Soldier is a lot stronger than Dark Arm Dragon and has all the weaknesses of it. So, just one of those things, But yeah, so anyways, if you guys would like us to take a look at your deck, go ahead and message us on Instagram with a deck list, preferably a written deck list. If you want us to take a look at that, our Instagram is Invoked101. It's always in the intro, so if you have questions about spelling it, just go back to the intro. And we'll see if we can put it up. Tell me if you guys like these videos, if you like these little deck review videos, and maybe we'll do more of them. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, go check out our Patreon in the description below. It would mean a lot to us. And I will see you guys in the next video.